Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Let me start with a simple but powerful question. What happens when a nation spends more than it earns, borrows more than it can repay, and prints money like it grows on trees? The answer is not only predictable, it's inevitable. America is entering one of the most horrific financial crises in its history, and unless we face reality, the consequences will be catastrophic. Wake up before it's too late. That is the warning most people don't want to hear because as it forces them to confront a reality they would rather avoid. But ignoring a problem doesn't make it disappear. It only guarantees that the consequences will hit harder when they arrive. Right now, America is sleepwalking into the worst financial crisis in its history. The signs are everywhere, yet most people remain comfortably blind. Inflation is not a temporary inconvenience. It is a symptom of systemic failure. Debt is not just a number on a government balance sheet. It is a ticking time bomb. And the dollar is not as strong as the headlines tell you. It is a hollow currency propped up by faith that is rapidly fading. The truth is brutal. The collapse doesn't wait for your permission. It comes when you least expect it. And when it does, excuses won't shield you. Think about this. Every great crisis in history was preceded by denial. In 2008, I warned about the housing bubble, but people laughed. They told me real estate never goes down. They said the system was safe. And yet, millions lost their homes, their jobs, and their futures because they ignored the obvious. Today, the situation is far worse. The debt is larger, the Fed's balance sheet is bigger, and the dollar is weaker. We are living in the calm before the storm, but instead of preparing, Americans are spending more, borrowing more, and believing more lies. That is the recipe for disaster. So here's the hook. Those who prepare now will survive, and those who keep sleeping will be destroyed. The choice is yours. The reason I say wake up before it's too late is because financial collapse doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, invisibly, until suddenly it explodes. It's like termites in a house. The structure looks solid from the outside, but inside it's being eaten away piece by piece. You can't see the damage until the day the house crumbles. That's exactly what's happening to the American economy. The foundation, sound money, fiscal discipline, productive investment has been eaten away by reckless spending, endless money printing, and blind consumerism. By the time the average person notices, it's already too late to escape. Don't be that person who wakes up in shock asking, how did this happen? Be the one who saw it coming and acted. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine you're on a ship and the captain keeps drilling holes in the hull. You hear the warnings, you see the water seeping in, but instead of getting on a lifeboat, you keep dancing at the party. That's exactly what Americans are doing right now, celebrating the illusion of prosperity while the ship is sinking. The dollar is losing value, the debt is unpayable, and the system is unsustainable. If you don't act now, when will you? After the water is at your neck, that's not courage, that's suicide. And yet, there is hope. Waking up is the first step to freedom. Awareness is the weapon that separates the survivors from the victims. If you understand what's happening, you can protect yourself. You can get out of assets that will be destroyed, and you can move into assets that will endure. You can shield your family, preserve your wealth, and even position yourself to thrive while others collapse. But that opportunity only exists for those who wake up in time. Most people won't. They'll cling to the dollar. They'll trust politicians. They'll believe Wall Street. And when the crash comes, they'll have nothing left but regret. So I ask you, do you want to be the person who says, I saw this coming and I prepared? Or do you want to be the person who says, if only I had listened, if only I had acted sooner? Life doesn't give second chances when it comes to financial collapse. Once it hits, the game is over. That is why you must wake up before it's too late. Stop trusting false promises. If there is one thing history has proven, it's that governments and central bankers have perfected the art of deception. They tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to know. They promise you prosperity without sacrifice, security without responsibility, and wealth without work. But every promise comes with a hidden cost. And in the end, it is always the people, the savers, the workers, the taxpayers who are left holding the bill. You must ask yourself, why do we keep believing the very institutions that have failed us time and time again? Because it's easier to cling to comforting lies than to face uncomfortable truths. That is why I say to you, stop trusting the false promises or you will become a casualty of their lies. Think about the Federal Reserve. For years, they promised that inflation was transitory, a temporary spike that would quickly fade. They told you the economy was strong, that money printing was harmless, that debt didn't matter. But what happened? Prices soared, purchasing power collapsed, and the cost of living exploded. They said they could control it all, but the truth is they lost control long ago. Yet millions still trust them as if they were economic saviors. This is the hook. If you continue to put your faith in those who profit from your ignorance, you will lose everything when reality breaks through their illusion. Politicians are no better. Every election cycle, they come with new promises, free programs, bigger checks, lower taxes, more benefits. They sound like magicians pulling endless rabbits out of a hat, but the magic is fake. Nothing they give you is free. Every dollar the government spends comes from you, either through taxes today or inflation tomorrow. When they promise relief, what they're really delivering is dependence. When they promise security, what they're really building is debt slavery. Stop believing that these people care about your future. They care about your votes. And once they have your votes, the promises vanish like smoke. Look at Wall Street too. The so-called experts appear on television telling you everything is fine. They assure you that the markets will rise forever, that bubbles don't exist, that every dip is a buying opportunity. They say this because their profits depend on your confidence. They don't make money if you're cautious. They make money when you're blind. But when the crash comes, when the markets collapse, when your retirement evaporates, they will already have cashed out. The hook is this: if you keep trusting the cheerleaders of a broken system, you will be left in ruins while they walk away with your wealth. I know it's hard to reject these promises because they are designed to seduce you. Who doesn't want easy money, free benefits, and endless prosperity? But the truth is that real wealth is never given. It is earned. Real security is not handed out by politicians. It is built through preparation, discipline, and ownership of real assets. Every time you believe a false promise, you surrender more of your future to those who thrive on your dependence. If you want to be free, you must break the cycle. You must stop trusting the very people who are engineering your downfall. The hardest part is not seeing the lie, it's admitting you believed it. Many people will deny reality until the very end because admitting they were fooled is too painful. Don't let pride destroy you. It takes courage to say, I've been missiled, but I won't be missiled anymore. That courage is what separates the victims from the survivors. The false promises will keep coming louder and more desperate because the system is crumbling, but you must resist them. You must remember that every promise that sounds too good to be true always ends in disaster. Are you willing to keep trusting the same institutions that lied to you yesterday, or will you finally take responsibility for your own future today? The answer to that question will determine whether you survive this crisis or become another statistic in the wreckage of broken promises. Recognize real wealth. That is the principle most Americans have forgotten, and it is why so many are walking blindly into financial ruin. We have been conditioned to believe that numbers on a screen equal wealth, that paper currency defines prosperity, and that debt-fueled consumption is the same as success. But that is the illusion of wealth, not the reality. Real wealth cannot be created by printing presses, by digital entries, or by political promises. Real wealth is tangible, durable, and rooted in value that endures through time. If you fail to recognize what true wealth is, then when the crisis comes, you will discover too late that everything you thought you owned was nothing more than smoke. Look around at the society we live in today. People celebrate stock market highs without asking what those highs are built on. They cheer when their home value rises, even though it's priced in a currency losing value by the day. They treat rising wages as victory without realizing those wages buy less with every paycheck. It's the great deception, confusing inflated numbers with real prosperity. The hook here is simple. If your wealth is measured in dollars, then you are not wealthy at all. You are holding a melting ice cube and pretending it's solid. History tells us the same story over and over. Empires collapse not because they lacked soldiers or land, but because they debased their money and destroyed their economies. Rome debased its coins until they were worthless. Weimar Germany printed its currency into oblivion. Zimbabwe did the same. And now the United States is on the same path. Yet people believe it cannot happen here. They believe the dollar is untouchable, eternal, safe. But the dollar is just paper backed by nothing but faith. And when faith disappears, so does the currency. That is why recognizing real wealth matters now more than ever. What is real wealth? It is not paper promises, it is tangible value. Gold and silver assets that have stood the test of thousands of years are real wealth. They cannot be printed, they cannot be inflated away, and they cannot be defaulted on. On productive land, businesses that generate real goods and services, skills that create value, these are real wealth. They are the lifeboats that keep you afloat when the paper economy sinks. Ask yourself, do you want your family's future to rest on digits stored in a fragile banking system? Or do you want it anchored in assets that survive every storm? That decision will determine who thrives and who collapses in the years ahead. Most people will reject this message because it requires discipline and foresight. It is easier to keep chasing quick profits in the stock bubble, to keep piling into real estate bubbles, or to keep spending borrowed money on luxuries that lose value the moment you buy them. But when you confuse spending with wealth, you are setting yourself up for disaster. Wealth is not about what you consume, it's about what you preserve. If you own things that governments cannot dilute, devalue, or confiscate through inflation, then you hold the keys to survival. If not, you are a prisoner of the system and its false promises. The crash will not warn you before it comes. The dollar will not politely announce the day it loses global reserve status. Inflation will not slow down so you can catch up. The system will fail suddenly, and when it does, the only thing that matters is what you already own. At that moment, paper wealth will vanish while real wealth will endure. The difference between Poverty and prosperity in that moment is whether you recognized real wealth before it was too late. So I urge you to think differently than the herd. Don't measure your success by how many dollars you have. Measure it by how much purchasing power you can protect. Don't celebrate inflated prices. Secure assets that hold value across generations. Don't confuse illusions with reality, because when the smoke clears, only real wealth will remain. Recognize it, embrace it, and prepare now, because those who don't will soon find that everything they worked for was an illusion, destroyed by a system they trusted but never understood. Crisis creates opportunity. That is a truth as old as history itself, yet most people refuse to see it because fear blinds them. When markets crash, when currencies collapse, when economies unravel, the majority panic. They sell in desperation, they cling to hope, and they watch everything slip away. But those who understand how the world really works, those who prepare and act with discipline, see the chaos differently. They see it as a rare moment when wealth transfers from the reckless to the prepared, from the fearful to the courageous. Every crisis is a fork in the road. Most take the path of destruction, but a few take the path of opportunity. The hook is this: while all others drown in the storm, you can ride the wave to a stronger future, but only if you're ready. History leaves us no doubt. The Great Depression wiped out millions, yet it created fortunes for those who saw it coming and positioned themselves correctly. The 1970s stagflation devastated savings, but those who held gold preserved their wealth and multiplied it. The 2008 financial crash erased trillions in paper value, but it rewarded those who escaped the bubble and invested in real assets. Every major crisis has been a test, and the test has always been the same. Do you see only fear, or do you recognize opportunity hidden within the collapse? The sad truth is that most people fail that test because they trust the crowd, and the crowd always panics. We are standing at the edge of another such moment right now. The U.S. is drowning in debt it can never repay. The Federal Reserve is trapped between inflating away the currency or collapsing the economy. The dollar's global dominance is being challenged, and the system is cracking under its own weight. These conditions do not spell doom for everyone. They spell opportunity for those who understand what's happening. If you know that paper promises will fail, then you can position yourself in assets that will endure. If you know inflation will destroy savings, you can protect yourself with real money like gold and silver. If you know bubbles will burst, you can avoid them and preserve your capital while others are wiped out. But opportunity doesn't wait for you. Once the crash begins, the window slams shut. By the time the headlines scream crisis, it's too late to prepare. That is why you must act now while others are still asleep. Think of it like a fire in a crowded theater. Most people wait until they see the flames before they move, but by then the exits are blocked. The ones who survive are the ones who saw the smoke first and acted without hesitation. This is exactly where we are in the financial system. We can already smell the smoke. The question is, will you wait for the flames? The greatest fortunes in history are not made in times of calm. They are made in times of turmoil. When everything is overvalued, when the crowd is euphoric, there is little opportunity. But when everything collapses, when fear rules the day, assets are sold for pennies on the dollar. That is when those who prepared step in and build lasting wealth. Crisis creates opportunity, but only for those who are willing to see beyond the fear and act with courage. So while others spend their energy hoping the government will save them, you must understand that the government is the reason the crisis exists. While others cling to the dollar, you must recognize its decline and move to assets that cannot be destroyed by printing presses. While others are paralyzed by fear, you must act with clarity. That is the mindset that transforms crisis from a death sentence into a doorway to a stronger, freer, more prosperous future. Think long-term, not short-term. That is the greatest edge you can have in a world where everyone else is chasing quick rewards. Most people today are trapped in the mindset of instant gratification. They want wealth now, comfort now, success now. They don't want to wait, they don't want to sacrifice, and they don't want to plan. But wealth built overnight rarely lasts, and comfort that comes too easily usually disappears just as quickly. The hook here is this: if you discipline yourself to look beyond the moment, you will see opportunities and dangers that others miss, and that vision will protect you when the crowd is blinded by its own impatience. Everywhere you look, short-term thinking dominates. Politicians design policies not to fix the future, but to win the next election. Central bankers create artificial booms not to strengthen the economy, but to delay the inevitable crash. Investors pile into bubbles not because they believe in long-term value, but because they want to make a quick profit before the music stops. This short-term mentality is why crises keep repeating. Nobody wants to face pain today, so they push it into tomorrow. But tomorrow always arrives, and by then, the pain is multiplied. If you want to avoid being crushed, you cannot think like the herd. You must adopt a longer horizon. Take inflation as an example. The Federal Reserve tells you it is under control, and people breathe a sigh of relief because prices didn't climb as fast last month. That's short-term thinking. Long-term thinking asks, what happens to my purchasing power 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if the dollar continues to be debased? Most people don't ask that question because they are distracted by temporary numbers. But the ones who do ask and who act on the answer are the ones who come out of the storm with their wealth intact. Building wealth requires the same patience as planting an orchard. If you plant today and expect fruit tomorrow, you will be disappointed. But if you nurture, water, and wait, you will one day stand in the shade of trees that produce for generations. That is what long-term thinking is about. It's not about gambling on the next market spike. It's about laying foundations that endure. Gold doesn't pay off instantly. It's not exciting. It doesn't surge overnight. But over the long term, it preserves wealth through every inflation, every crisis, every collapse. That is why the patient win and the impatient lose. The hook that should resonate with you is this: short-term thinkers are always victims of long-term consequences. They chase quick gains and end up with lasting losses. They buy into bubbles and end up holding worthless assets. They trust promises that feel good today but cost them dearly tomorrow. Meanwhile, those who look beyond the moment see the cracks forming before the collapse. They step aside before disaster, and they accumulate assets that will shine when paper promises turn to dust. This is not just about money, it's about mindset. A short-term thinker asks, how can I survive this week? A long-term thinker asks, how can I thrive for decades? A short-term thinker asks, what's the minimum I can do to get by? A long-term thinker asks, what can I do today that will secure tomorrow? When you adopt the long-term view, you stop being reactive and start being strategic. You stop being controlled by events and start positioning yourself to control outcomes. Most people won't do this because it requires patience in a world addicted to speed. They will continue to gamble, to hope, to chase easy gains, and when the crash comes, they will say they never saw it coming. but you don't have to be one of them. You can train yourself to see further, to prepare earlier, and to endure longer. That is the discipline of long-term thinking, and it is the ultimate weapon in surviving and thriving through the horrific financial crisis that is now unfolding. Take control of your future. That may sound simple, but in reality, it is the hardest and most important decision you will ever make. Most people drift through life believing that someone else will take care of them, that the government will provide, that their employer will always be there, that the financial system will remain stable. But that belief is a trap. Every time you hand over responsibility for your financial security to someone else, you put your future in danger. The harsh truth is this: no politician, no central banker, no Wall Street advisor is going to save you. They are not even trying to. They are serving their own interests, not yours. The hook is clear. If you don't take control of your future now, you will have no future left to control when this crisis fully unfolds. Think about the lies we have been told. The government says Social Security will always be there. Yet the trust funds are already bankrupt on paper, and the only way to keep paying benefits is to print more worthless dollars. Employers promise pensions and retirement security, yet countless people have already seen those promises vanish in bankruptcies and restructurings. Banks assure you your savings are safe, yet they gamble with your deposits in risky markets, while the FDIC could never cover a real systemic collapse. Every institution you rely on is weaker than it pretends to be, and still people continue to trust them because taking control for themselves feels overwhelming. But isn't it more overwhelming to lose everything because you failed to act? When I say take control, I mean stop being passive. Stop waiting for help that isn't coming. You must make the decisions now that will protect you when the system crumbles. That means diversifying out of dollars before they collapse in value. That means owning assets governments cannot inflate away. That means educating yourself about how money works rather than blindly trusting so-called experts who profit from your ignorance. The people who will suffer most in this crisis are the ones who sat back, assumed someone else would fix it, and did nothing. Don't be one of them. The hook you need to remember is this: nobody cares about your future more than you do. Not your government, not your bank, not even your financial advisor. If you fail to protect yourself, nobody else will. And if you succeed in taking control, nobody can take that away from you. Independence is not given, it is claimed. And in times of crisis, only those who claim it survive. Taking control doesn't mean you can stop the crisis. You can't. The debt will implode, the dollar will collapse, the bubbles will burst. What you can control is how much of that destruction hits you directly. You can choose whether you hold assets that vanish when the music stops or assets that endure when the lights go out. You can choose whether you're chained to a sinking ship or already in a lifeboat rowing towards safety. That choice is yours, and it's a choice that must be made before the storm hits, not after. Most people will never make that choice. They will keep trusting the system until it betrays them. They will keep believing promises until they are broken. They will keep living as though tomorrow will look exactly like today, even though every signal says otherwise. But you have the chance to do something different. You have the chance to see through the illusion, to prepare, and to take back control of your financial destiny. Ask yourself this: when the collapse comes, and it will come, do you want to be the person crying out for rescue, or the person who never needed rescuing in the first place? Do you want to be the victim of forces you refuse to face, or the master of a plan you had the courage to create, the answer to that question is everything. The time for action is not tomorrow, not next year, but now. Take control of your future before the system takes it from you.